Well, hello, hello. It is Sunday, October 20th, and I am coming to you dressed as a pirate because this week I'm involved in all sorts of Halloween activities for the park I work at. Super duper fun. We're able to make lots of people happy. I was Cat in the Hat the other day, and today I thought I would dress up as William Dompierre, who was a pirate but also a naturalist, which I really admire that breadth and depth of life's work. As I say, I'm a writer, a teacher, and an outdoor educator because I found that it was too constricting to try to only narrow myself down to one, which is something that I was trying to do for a while. And I finally gave up and said, I'm just going to be who I am. So today, in this Artist Way study group video, I'm also going to talk a little bit about where I'm at with the process and to encourage you to take up wherever you're at without apology, without trying to shrink yourself, without trying to pinpoint where you are, because it just seems like that is a terribly difficult and arduous and not really rewarding task. So this is the 6th of 7 videos about this study group. My last video, week 5, I erroneously said we were studying 9 and 10, which would be actually what we would talk about in this session. So I apologize for that. However, I am sticking to my guns, so to speak, in a very piratical, kind of fun way and not a literal way, that this process is not so much about doing the right things all the time, but about exploring our creativity. Again, I'm the facilitator of the process for this. I'm not the teacher of the text. I didn't write this tome, The Artist Way, but I have read it and studied it to the point where I feel thoroughly confused. No, I'm just kidding. To where it's kind of all blended together to become a resource for when I'm trying to be creative. I know that there are tools and tricks and tips that I can find in there. That being said, if we go with what was in the original plan of this being week 9 and 10, I made a few little notes. 9 is about recovering a sense of compassion. And I love that she says on page 153, it's really about creativity and doing your thing. It's really more about enthusiasm than discipline. We can work really hard. I think it's important to use your calendar, schedule your time, make room for yourself. If we don't do that, then it just all blends together, which happens to me day after day, week after week. And when I stop and assess, I'm like, ooh, it takes a certain amount of willpower to put something on the calendar and then to stick with it. And it's just a process. We can be creative with it. It doesn't have to be, when we look at it as a discipline, it's going to be difficult because, as Nancy Klein says, the mind likes to play, not obey. That is one of my favorite all-time sayings. When I read that, I was like, oh yeah, that's why every time I say I'm going to throw myself into a program or a structure, my mind goes, wait a minute, that doesn't sound playful to me. So remember, an artist, their fundamental thing is enthusiasm and playfulness. In the last online class, somebody said that their favorite quote was by Anaya Nin. I believe I said that right. And she said, life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. And since this is a chapter on compassion, I also thought life also kind of shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage, because when courage, of course, she said that, but also compassion, because when we're compassionate with ourselves, we tend to expand. There's a deep breath, like, okay, I'm here, whatever I'm doing, I can be creative with. And that's very compassionate and opening. When we feel like we're not doing it right, or we have to do more, we haven't done well enough, which is kind of the MO we've mostly all grown up with, then we shrink. So life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage and compassion. And also on page 157, Julia Cameron, it's so interesting. I've been doing all this studying about horses for my novel for young people that I'm working on right now. And she said she uses a horse as a comparison, and she's always talking about mark your synchronicities. I was like, ooh, that's a nice synchronicity. The horse comparison is that you should move your skittish. You just all we need to do is move our skittish horse forward, meaning our creative self. Just one little, it's a skittish horse. It gets scared. There's lots of content, emotional content that we have to deal with. So the horse comparison is you really just want to move your skittish horse forward. And one trick is to place a green horse in a slipstream of an older, steadier, more seasoned horse. Now, I love this idea because I was noticing recently, I saw a poster where somebody had put up all the women that they admired. Sheroes was the title of the poster, and I've really thought who are the people, the creative people that I admire, or the people who just seem to live a life that's full of exuberance, optimism, also practicality, realistic approach. We live in daunting times. And how do we navigate that? Who are the people we know who are navigating that? I think that was something that just felt like it was a sort of, not an epiphany exactly, but a shift. One trick is to place a green or skittish horse in the slipstream of an older, steadier, more seasoned horse. I remember my brother saying, actually many years ago, he read a book where the woman who was like a corporate CEO used the imagery of taking on the mantle of another person who she admired. So if she were thinking of doing maybe a big building project or something, she would find out about so and so or such and such project, and then imagine herself taking on the mantle and acting as that person. So I think that's so lovely because we are also prone to thinking in individual terms, and that's again just kind of the way we've grown up and what our society is about. It's added a lot to America, this individual push, but we can see now it's a little bit out of balance. Ooh, I'm saying that a little facetiously. It's out of balance. What can we do to kind of bring back, even in our own lives, in our own little way, this idea of apprenticeship, of looking toward those people who have done so well. Nicholas Kristof says in one of his books, if there is no path, you keep walking it and a path appears. That's true. And I love that idea because we each do have to walk our own path. But also, who are those people who have gone on the path before? And anyway, I thought that was a way to be compassionate with oneself, is give yourself the gift of somebody to look up to and somebody to admire and somebody whose energy might pull you forward. All right, chapter 10 is about self-protection, which is a big thing, and it's one of my big life lessons, is how do we release unhelpful ways of being, things that we've done in the past that were not protective of ourselves. So it's a really tricky balance because you don't want to be closed off and then you don't want to be attacking. So where is that balance where you're protected but also open? So that's just some work, things to think about. It's a long-term project, not something you're going to get through in a single chapter. But in her words, we search for toxic patterns and cling to them. I'd rather not search too hard for toxic patterns because what you seek, you find. And I've done a lot of that. I think that kind of work really goes well in a therapeutic setting. I had the epiphany this morning that some of the stuff that she brings up really should be done on a one-on-one basis with a teacher or a therapist, because there are things I have addressed, but just to do them totally on your own, even in a small group like the ones I'm facilitating, there's some very deep stuff that needs to be slowly worked through and unwound and untangled. And it's a long process. It shouldn't be expected to be done overnight. So again, if you're searching for toxic patterns and trying to break those, I encourage you to find a one-on-one situation where you can really take the time and do it carefully and kindly and compassionately and thoroughly. I rephrased it to being looking for unhelpful ways of being. Um, and so that's something I've done over the past few years of like boundary setting, like what is really good for me and what isn't, and how can I, take care of myself and do that in a way that's not self-sabotaging, but that is supportive of myself and clear and honest and kind. One of the lines in chapter 10 is this always takes longer than we want. And that's just patience is mastery, 3 times patience. As Ursula Gwynn says in Wizard of Earthsea, patience is wizardry, I think, and 3 times patience is mastery. So patience, patience, patience. Everything always takes longer than we want, and we do not compare yourself with anyone else because that is a recipe for disaster. And I know every time I find myself in a comparison situation, you shrink down, you back off, your creativity, bleh. And then of course you can't really live someone else's life anyway. So it's a false dichotomy. Wherever you're at, if you bring it to life, then it's vital and it's valuable and it's what you should be doing. The last thing on chapter 10 I want to say is that she talks about workaholism and getting rid of that. And I think that's so challenging in our life. We still have this puritanical underpinning. And also, if those people who are retired and or like me, I work lots of different jobs. So sometimes I am working on a Sunday like today, which I usually try to take off. So what is workaholism? I think it came down to, this is garnered from a friend of mine and also teacher and compatriot, Dorota Godby. She mentioned that she found that because she does art she's working on doing that for a living, but then that used to be her hobby and things that would help revitalize her. So she realized that to break it between work and not work is what makes you feel revitalized. What is play? What is that you're not trying to make your mind obey? So in the sense of self-protection, making room for us as we work on creativity, it can become like work. Do the task, do the morning pages, do the artist date, do the meditative walk. And then you notice it, rather than it being revitalizing, it's becoming work and you feel like a workaholic. And this can be really, if you're retired too, your time is not structured from work to home. It's all blended together, and you can start to feel like a workaholic because things that used to be restful that you do at home or after work become work. So think about the sayings: the mind likes to play, not obey. And if the next task you're going to do feels like it's revitalizing or adding energy to your life, then that's rest and recuperation and reward. If it feels like something you have to do to check a box off a list, or please Cat Fitzpatrick, or please Julia Cameron, or please somebody, then that is work. And you should put that in the work section of your life. So it's a challenge. It's a very big discipline. But as creative people, we have the task. What do they say? Sometimes it's a burden and a blessing. A blessing and a curse is to have this opportunity to live our creative lives. Where is it revitalizing and where does it become work? And sometimes work is necessary. If you're going to be a creative, making your living that way, then it becomes work, and you will make a way to have work and revitalizing activity. So that is my thoughts on chapters 9 and 10. Again, I'm in the process. I am not the teacher of the text, so take whatever I've said that you like. If you don't like it, just cast it away, make it walk the plank. And on this October 20th, we have a beautiful fall day in New York, wherever you are and whatever time of year it is. I hope you will make room for something that's beyond your imagining, like a pirate who's also a naturalist. Where do you fit in the world? It doesn't have to fit into a little box. All right, thanks for spending this time with me, and until next time, please take care.